The journey to Mars has only just begun. Right finger subscribe now and hit the bell to explore the mysteries of the universe with me. Sparkles now, let's dive into the story. In 2040, Earth entered what future historians would call the Black Decade. Sandstorms the size of continents swallowed cities whole. Polar ice melted faster than anyone had feared, seas rose and drowned coastal regions, while millions of acres of farmland withered into desert. Nations clashed over water and energy, wars flared like brushfires. On every news channel, the world grew used to the same images: endless columns of refugees, burning cities, and crowds raging against governments that had failed to stop the collapse. In the middle of this chaos, the United Nations called a special summit in Geneva. Outside the glass and steel conference hall, floodlights blazed as hundreds of reporters jostled for position. For days, rumors had been flying. The UN was about to announce something unprecedented in human history. And they were right. From the podium, the Secretary General's voice cut through the silence. We have drained this planet to the brink. But humanity cannot end here. We must find another home. Our destination is Mars. Applause thundered through the hall, though shouts of protest pierced it. Some scientists demanded that every resource be poured into saving Earth, not fleeing it. But the decision was made. Within 3 years, an international crew would launch aboard the most advanced spacecraft ever built, Project Ares. In Boston, inside a cluttered MIT research lab, Dr. Daniel Ross watched the announcement on a flickering screen. 35, tall and lean, with unruly brown hair that spoke of sleepless nights, he sat at a desk scattered with soil samples brought from Chile's Atacama Desert, the closest thing Earth had to Martian ground. An astrobiologist by training, Daniel had spent years dreaming of sowing life on the red planet. Yet as he read the call for crew applications, longing tangled with doubt. What if this is just an escape for the powerful? He wondered. What if Mars becomes the next battlefield? Would it be worth it? Outside his window, schoolchildren trudged past in dust masks, their small faces hidden behind filters. The sight pierced him deeper than the speech. By the time he turned back to his screen, the decision was made. He would apply. 3 weeks later, Daniel arrived at the International Space Center in Geneva. Hundreds of candidates gathered: engineers, pilots, scientists, soldiers. Among them, a few caught his eye. Elena Petrova, a Russian aerospace engineer with a soldier's stride and a gaze like cold steel. Akira Tanaka, a young Japanese scientist, fingers racing across his tablet in ceaseless code. Luis Alvarez, a Spanish biomedical doctor, smiling gently even in the tense air. Fatima Hassan, an Egyptian archaeologist, her eyes glowing whenever she glimpsed a Mars poster. Michael O'Connor, an Irish pilot, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying himself with a cocky grin. On the very first day, Michael strode over, clapped Daniel's shoulder, and said, "So, Professor, you think you're ready to chase a new world? Out there's no place for dreamers." Daniel smiled faintly. "And I hope there's no place for reckless hotshots either." The group laughed, but a quiet tension had been born between the two men. That night, just as the candidates returned to their quarters, a sharp alarm split the silence. Red lights flashed, everyone was herded back to the training ground. On the giant screen overhead, a live transmission appeared, data from a satellite orbiting Mars. It had picked up a signal. A radio pulse, flickering in deliberate rhythm. Almost like language. Experts in Houston and Tokyo had no explanation. But one fact chilled the air: the signal had grown stronger the moment Project Ares was announced. The training ground went still. Daniel felt ice crawl down his spine. Is Mars truly dead, he thought, or has it been waiting for us? The echo of the mysterious Martian signal still haunted Daniel the next morning, as he and hundreds of other candidates gathered at the wide plaza of the International Space Center. Above them, under the clear blue sky, the UN flag snapped in the wind, its reflection glimmering off rows of solemn chairs. A U.S. general, representing the Selection Council, stepped forward and spoke with a voice that carried across the plaza. "You are here because humanity needs its bravest. But remember, this mission is not an expedition. It is a line between life and extinction. Failure means annihilation. From all of you, we will choose only 6. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Daniel's eyes drifted over familiar faces. Alina's unflinching gaze, Akira's calm composure, Luis's optimistic smile, Michael's fiery determination. In that instant, he realized, they were no longer rivals. They were bound together as candidates of fate. The first challenge was the centrifuge. Candidates were strapped into enormous rotating pods, their bodies crushed by rising G-forces. Screams echoed, some fainted. Daniel clenched his teeth, muscles straining as the weight of gravity multiplied. Through blurred vision he caught Michael, grinning defiantly despite the sweat pouring down his face. Elena sat rigid, silent, her breathing steady, like a soldier long accustomed to extremes. When the centrifuge slowed, only a third of the candidates remained conscious. Daniel staggered out, chest heaving, but inside he felt it. Step 1 was behind him. A simulated Martian desert sprawled before them, whipped by artificial sandstorms. Teams of 5 were ordered to build shelters and survive the storm. Daniel's team, Elena, Akira, Luis, and Michael. Predictably, Michael took charge. "Listen to me," he barked. "Set the tents eastward. The wind'll break around us." Elena shot back instantly, "Are you insane? That's the direct wind path. The tents will collapse in minutes." Tension thickened. Akira stammered through equations of aerodynamics. Luis tried to mediate. Finally, Daniel's voice cut through. "Enough. We try Elena's plan, but reinforce the poles the way Michael suggests. If it fails, I'll take the blame." Reluctantly, they agreed. The storm roared, but the camp held. Other teams collapsed into chaos, their shelters torn apart. Their group passed. Michael gave Daniel a look, half anger, half reluctant respect. That evening, each candidate faced a private interrogation. Inside a dim chamber, psychologists sat behind a desk, screens glowing with images from the candidate's personal life. When Daniel's turn came, the screen flashed a live feed of his mother in Florida. Frail, aging, her coastal town was slowly sinking under the encroaching sea. A disembodied voice asked, "Tell us, Daniel, do you stay behind to care for her? Or do you leave, perhaps forever?" The question stabbed deep. He closed his eyes, drew in a breath. "If I stay, the next generation will have nowhere to live. If I go, it's to save her, and everyone." The panel nodded. His score was recorded. When he stepped out, he caught Elena waiting outside. For a brief moment their eyes met, heavy with unspoken conflict. She, too, must have been asked to choose between family and duty. On the final day of selection, all candidates were summoned once more. An officer mounted the podium, holding a clipboard. After careful deliberation, the Council has chosen the 6 who will carry humanity's hopes. The first name rang out, Drive. Daniel Ross, United States. Relief surged through him, though his heart thundered. Then, Elena Petrova, Russia. Akira Tanaka, Japan. Luis Alvarez, Spain. Fatima Hassan, Egypt. Michael O'Connor, Ireland. The crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, disbelief. 6 names, 6 destinies. But as the noise swelled, the massive screen behind them flickered to life. Once again, the Martian signal appeared, brighter, sharper, no longer random pulses but forming shapes. Patterns. Like words. Fatima's voice trembled. No, this isn't chance. They're answering us. Silence crushed the room. The six chosen stared at each other, faces filled with equal parts pride and dread. The training center lay buried deep in the Swiss Alps, where the world was nothing but endless snow and ice. The six who had been chosen as the Ares I crew were brought here, far from television cameras and flashing reporters' lights. No stage, no applause, only them, alone, bound by destiny. On their first day, a towering American officer faced them, his voice like thunder. Congratulations. You are humanity's hope. But hope is not a privilege. From this moment forward, you are no longer citizens of any nation. You are the Ares crew. We will forge you into survivors of Mars, or erase your names from the list. No one spoke. Daniel glanced at his new companions. Elena, stone-faced and rigid as marble, Michael, standing tall with burning eyes, Luis, smiling to mask his nerves, Fatima, restless with excitement, Akira, head bent over his tablet, tapping away as if the world outside did not exist. Training began with survival tests in simulated Martian conditions. A massive chamber became a desert of extremes, searing 40 degrees Celsius heat by day, plunging to minus 60 degrees Celsius by night, air thin to choking dryness. They wore prototype space suits, tasked with building a camp and harvesting water from artificial ice. After 2 days of struggle, it was Luis who discovered how to draw moisture from the thin air, sparing the crew from dehydration. But friction soon surfaced. Elena snapped at Michael's clumsy construction. You build the frame like that, the first gust will tear it apart. Michael growled back, I've survived battlefields. I don't need a Russian engineer teaching me survival. The air grew sharp. Daniel finally cut in, enough. If we waste time fighting, we'll freeze to death tonight. They fell silent. Yet the seeds of conflict had been sown. For the next 18 months, their lives became a cycle of brutal drills, hauling heavy packs across icy peaks, swimming in sub-zero waters, practicing emergency depressurization inside mock spacecraft modules. One day, they ran inside a rotating gravity chamber, bodies crushed to mimic orbital forces. Michael surged ahead like a predator, muscles straining. Fatima stumbled, nearly collapsing. Without hesitation, Daniel slowed, turned back, caught her arm. The instructor's voice rang out. Ross, you lose points for speed. But you've proved something far greater, leadership. For the first time, Elena's cold eyes softened as she watched him. In another exercise, the six were locked in a black chamber. Through hidden speakers came the sounds of war, explosions, screams for help, waves crashing over drowning cities. Neuroscanners tracked their brain activity. Akira whispered, they're flooding our minds with synthetic waves. The test is to see who can stay rational. Michael roared, pounding the wall, I hear my wife and son. You think you can break me? He nearly cracked the protective panel. Daniel closed his eyes, forcing breath into his lungs. These are illusions. Stay steady. Earth needs me. Mother needs me. He held the line. The machine confirmed his calm. On the last night of the 6th month, the six were given a rare reprieve, to step outside, under the stars. They sat around a fire on the mountain ridge. Fatima lifted her face to the heavens. Among the constellations, a single red spark glowed. There, she whispered, Mars. My ancestors worshipped it as the god of war. And now we are about to walk upon it. Silence fell. The fire crackled. Then Akira shuddered violently. His eyes went wide. I see it again, he gasped. A red city, towers burning, screams, inside my head. He collapsed, blood trickling from his nose. Daniel caught him, shouting for help. Elena scrambled for the medic. Luis rushed over, heart hammering. Akira's hand clamped onto Daniel's wrist. With ragged breath, he whispered, "We are not the first." The words froze the group in place. The night itself seemed to hold its breath, as if warning them of a fate already written. The second winter cloaked the Alps in white. The 6 members of the Ares I crew entered the most critical phase of training, long-term confinement simulation. For 60 days, they would live inside a sealed metal habitat, with limited oxygen and rations, a mirror of the 7 months they would endure aboard Ares I. Tension revealed itself almost immediately. Michael prowled the narrow corridors like a caged beast. Fatima sought solace in journaling, while Akira buried himself in lines of code, still obsessed with decoding the Martian signal. Luis tended to the others' health, reminding them to hydrate, to breathe steady. Daniel, as always, played the mediator. He cracked jokes when the silence grew too heavy, shared his rations when Fatima was too exhausted to eat. But Elena kept apart. She filled page after page with engineering notes, her distance as sharp as her silence. One night, when the others slept, Elena slipped from her bunk. She keyed in a coded sequence on her personal terminal, opening an encrypted channel to Moscow. The screen lit, revealing the stern face of a Russian military officer. "Elena Petrova," the man intoned. She stood at attention, though it was only a transmission. "Listen carefully. Russia has invested billions into the Ares project. We will not allow the United States and the UN to monopolize its spoils. Any discovery on Mars, especially technology, must be reported to us first. This is a national order." Elena swallowed hard. She knew the cost of disobedience. Yet in her mind flashed the memory of Daniel shielding her during the Desert Storm simulation. Her chest tightened. "Yes, sir," she whispered. The channel snapped dark, leaving her alone with the weight of betrayal. The next day, Michael picked another fight. He sneered at Akira. "Keep dreaming about your Martian code. Out there, it's just rocks and dust." Akira's hands trembled, but he said nothing. Fatima snapped. "You know nothing of science. Mars had water. And I believe it once had life." Michael laughed, bitter. "If it did, it's long dead. And if we're not strong enough, we'll join it." The chamber boiled with tension until Daniel cut through. "Enough. We're not here to tear each other apart. If we can't survive this simulation, we'll never survive Mars." The silence that followed was heavier than before. The rift had widened. That evening, Elena sat alone at the porthole, watching snow drift across the glass. Daniel approached, handing her a steaming cup of coffee. "You holding up?" he asked. "I'm fine." Her reply was curt, but after a pause, her voice softened. "Do you really believe Mars can be humanity's second home?" Daniel smiled faintly. "I don't know. But if we don't try, there won't be any home left at all." Her eyes lingered on him, wavering. Inside, 2 forces clashed: duty to her nation, and the respect she felt for this man and his ideals. On the 45th day, disaster struck. The oxygen system failed. Warning lights blared crimson, alarms shrieked. Panic swept the habitat. Elena spotted it first, a jammed valve. She lunged, twisted hard. The metal snapped. A shard slashed her cheek, blood spilling as the room filled with the tang of iron. Daniel dragged her back. "Hold that valve. If we don't, we suffocate in minutes." Michael, Akira, and Luis threw their weight into the controls. Together, grunting, straining, they forced the mechanism shut. At last the hiss died, the alarms fell silent. The crew collapsed onto the floor, gasping. Elena lay cradled against Daniel's arm, eyes wide, staring at him. And in that raw, breathless moment, she knew, betraying these people would not come easily. Yet the order still burned on her shoulders like a brand. After the oxygen valve incident, the Ares I crew entered a harsher stage of training, a 7-month-long confinement simulation. A vast cylindrical module was built inside the mountain, a replica of the spacecraft's living quarters. From now on, they would eat, sleep, and work in its narrow passageways, sealed off completely from the outside world. No sunlight, no breeze, only cold metal walls and the constant hum of machines. "This will be your Mars in miniature," a NASA engineer announced. "Every action, every reaction will be monitored. If you fail here, you are not fit for the real mission." The hatch slammed shut behind them. The metallic clack echoed like a prison lock. 6 people were now alone with each other. Each of them was given a role. Daniel tended the small biolab, coaxing potatoes and kale from hydroponic beds. Elena monitored the mock engine and power systems. Akira managed the AI and communications network. Luis oversaw medical care and daily health. Fatima cataloged environmental data. Michael enforced physical training and security drills. 4 hours of exercise every day kept their muscles from wasting. Meals were measured down to the gram. Within a week, the strain showed. Michael bristled under constant surveillance. Fatima wilted without sunlight. At night, Daniel kept a journal. Day 7. Now I begin to feel the weight of isolation. Yet here, we are learning to lean on each other. If we don't, we collapse. By day 20, tempers frayed. Michael lashed out at Akira when the comms glitched. "You and your damn codes again." Akira snapped back, voice steady but hands trembling. "I'm trying to decipher the Martian signal. It repeats like a language. If you'd listen instead of barking." Michael lunged, fist clenched. Daniel shoved himself between them, catching Michael's arm like a steel bar. "Stop. We cannot fight in here. If there's a problem, we face it together, or we all lose." Michael's chest heaved. His eyes burned red. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't become the saboteur, Michael. Muscles won't matter on Mars. Only restraint." For a long second he glared, then stormed off. The silence afterward was heavier than air. On the 31st night, while the others slept, Akira lingered by the console. He noticed a flicker in the comms system, an unauthorized channel bleeding in. Characters scrolled across the screen. Dot 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 dash 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 dot dot dot. Slash dot 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 dash 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 dot dot dot. Akira froze. Morse code. SOS. Heart hammering, he woke Daniel. Together they stared at the letters. Could this be another psychological test? Daniel whispered. Akira shook his head. No, this isn't from the control center. It's coming from somewhere in orbit. Before they could say more, the signal vanished. The screen went black. At breakfast the next morning, a harsh static crackled through the intercom. Then a voice, low, guttural, spoke. Not in any language they recognized, yet rhythmic, deliberate, like an ancient chant. Spoons clattered onto trays. No one moved. Fatima's eyes widened. It's a call, a ritual. I swear I heard the word memory. Elena turned to Daniel, face pale. Michael slammed his fist on the table. I don't care what it is. If Mars has secrets, we'll be the first to claim them. The lights flickered and died. The main screen blinked on. The same characters from Akira's discovery burned across it. Outsiders, warning. 6 hearts froze in unison. Sweat chilled their spines. This was no simulation. Mars was watching. The strange echo from the night before still clung to Daniel's mind. When the cold white lights snapped on to signal morning inside the module, the 6 crew members remained seated, their untouched breakfasts cooling in front of them. Fatima clutched her small notebook, whispering. I heard it clearly, the word memory. Something, or someone, is trying to speak to us. Akira nodded sharply. I logged the wave. It isn't a simulation feed. That frequency, it came from outside Earth. Michael slammed his fist against the metal table, the clang rattling through the chamber. Enough. This is a psych test, nothing more. Keep chasing ghosts and we'll get cut from the mission. Daniel spoke with calm steel in his voice. We can't ignore it. If the signal is real, it could redefine everything. But I agree, we need proof before we leap to conclusions. Later that day, the crew was patched through to mission control. UN officials and NASA supervisors filled the screen. Daniel reported the incident, Akira presenting his logged data. A senior NASA professor frowned. There is no anomalous signal outside the simulation program. What you experienced may have been stress-induced hallucinations. Our instruments registered nothing, Akira argued, pushing forward his recordings, but the panel dismissed him. Interference. Nothing more. This discussion is closed. The feed cut. Silence heavier than lead settled in the room. For the first time, they all felt abandoned. That night, Elena sat alone in her private berth, eyes fixed on her encrypted communicator. The words from Moscow burned in her mind, report all anomalies immediately. Her fingers hovered. If she complied, Russia would gain the upper hand. If she didn't, she betrayed her country. Then, Daniel appeared in the doorway, holding out a steaming cup of instant coffee. Thought you'd be awake. Elena jolted, quickly sliding the device out of sight. You couldn't sleep. No, he admitted. I keep thinking about the signal. I don't believe it was fake. She met his gaze, and something in his steady eyes shook her resolve. On day 40, the simulation threw its next crisis, a meteor strike. One module was damaged, the crew ordered to split and respond. Michael seized command. I'll take Elena to repair the engine. Daniel, you handle the bio lab. Akira and Fatima support. Luis covers medical. Daniel objected. No. Elena stays in central control, she knows the systems best. I'll go with you. Michael glared. You think you're the leader here? This isn't a classroom, it's a battlefield. The room tensed. At last, Elena spoke, her voice firm. We follow Daniel's plan. I stay. Michael froze, betrayed, then stormed off, fury boiling in his stride. The fracture in the team deepened. That night, as the crew lay in uneasy sleep, the intercom crackled alive. Not static, voices. Low, resonant, in a cadence none of them knew. You are not alone, remember, memory. They shot awake. Lights flickered, then died. The main screen lit with a wavering image, a crimson city, towers collapsing in fire. Akira's voice trembled. This is my dream. It's real. Tears shimmered in Fatima's eyes. Mars lived. And it is calling us. Michael roared, fists clenched. No, it's a trick. Fearmongering. Daniel said nothing. He stared at the burning city on the screen, a question thundering inside him. Is Mars not a dead planet at all, but a living memory? The skies over Geneva were impossibly clear that day, washed blue as if a storm had scoured them clean. Before the United Nations headquarters, thousands pressed together in the square, while millions more watched the live broadcast. Today, humanity would witness the unveiling of the most advanced spacecraft in history, the Ares I. The 6 crew members stepped onto the stage in crisp white and blue uniforms, the UN insignia bright on their chests. Daniel felt every step weighed down by expectation. The crowd roared, confetti rained, flags of dozens of nations rippled in the air. Yet beneath the cheers, he sensed the stares, admiration, yes, but also suspicion, envy, and hostility. Behind the glamour of the ceremony, Daniel knew the truth: Mars was not only a scientific dream. It was the greatest political gamble of their age. The massive curtain lifted, revealing the vessel on its launch pad in the Nevada desert. The ship gleamed silver, towering like a skyscraper, its solar arrays spread wide like the wings of a metallic bird. Within its hull thrummed the heart of a new era, a nuclear ion drive, fresh from successful trials. It would cut the journey to Mars to 7 months, down from the 18 that had once been required. Alina's eyes reflected the silver hull. Her voice was almost a whisper. This isn't just a ship. It's the first spear humanity casts at Mars. Fatima clutched her notebook, murmuring in Arabic, "May the gods guard us." Michael folded his arms, lips curled into a smirk. Our ship is stronger than anything that's ever flown. If Mars hides secrets, we'll be the first to seize them. Daniel frowned but said nothing. The words left a splinter in his chest. Leaders of nations took turns at the podium. The U.S. president hailed the Ares I as a new destiny for mankind. Japan's prime minister called it a symbol of unity. The Russian delegate offered congratulations, though his smile carried calculation. Backstage, Alina's communicator buzzed with a short encrypted message from Moscow. Remember, Ares does not belong to the UN. Russia must lead. She squeezed the device in her palm, heart hammering. Meanwhile, in a shadowed boardroom in New York, corporate magnates watched the broadcast. An old man leaned forward, voice low and cold. If they bring back new energy technology from Mars, we rule the century. Prepare a plan B. After the ceremony, the 6 were gathered in a private chamber. No longer rivals, they sat together as comrades who would soon share life and death. Luis broke the silence with a grin. Well, at least today the whole world cheered for us. Let's savor that before we march into the red hell. Fatima shook her head softly. I don't see hell. I see a tomb of an ancient civilization. And we are the ones about to dig it open. Her words hung heavy. Elena glanced at Daniel. He was quiet, scribbling in his notebook. One ship, millions of hopes. But also millions of dangers. Who will steer history's hand? That night, Daniel was summoned to a private meeting. A man in a black suit, a representative of an energy conglomerate, slid a small case across the table. Ross, you are the only scientist we trust. If you find any energy source on Mars, send the data to us first. In return, you and your family will be secured for life. Daniel felt a chill lance through him. He shoved the case back. I didn't join to sell my soul. I'm here to find answers for humanity. The man's eyes narrowed, lips curling into a thin smile. You'll regret that. On Mars, dreamers don't survive. Outside, fireworks lit the Geneva sky in celebration of the Ares I. But for Daniel, the brilliance was hollow, splinters of fire heralding a journey that would not just be of science, but of blood and betrayal. That morning, the training center felt eerily quiet. The 6 members of the Ares I crew were given one final day of freedom before the point of no return. Daniel sat alone in the comms room, clutching the satellite phone. The screen flickered, and the worn, wrinkled face of his mother appeared. She was still in Florida, where the sea had already devoured blocks of coastline, their old family home now only a street away from the encroaching waves. My son, she said, smiling, though her voice trembled. They tell me you'll be going far, farther than anyone ever has. Daniel forced a smile. Yes, to Mars. But don't worry, Mom, I'll come back. I'll carry hope with me for all of us. Her hand pressed against the screen, as if to touch his cheek through the glass. Just keep your heart. This world, it already has too many who've sold theirs for power. Daniel swallowed hard. She must have heard whispers about the corporations trying to buy him. He whispered back, I'm not leaving to escape. I'm leaving to find a way to save Earth. Believe in me. When the call ended, Daniel sat motionless, his eyes burning. Yet within, his resolve felt sharper than ever. In another room, Elena Petrova locked her door and opened the encrypted channel. The familiar face of the Russian officer appeared. Elena, the launch is near. You know your duty. Her hand tightened on the console. Her voice rasped, what exactly do you want from me? Everything. Evidence of life, technology, resources, anything. Russia must see it before the UN makes their announcements. Remember, you are not just an engineer. You are a soldier of the motherland. She hesitated. Faces flashed through her mind. Daniel's calm eyes, Luisa's kindness, Akira's obsession with the code, Fatima's faith. At last, she said softly, understood. The screen went dark, leaving her in heavy silence. She sank into the chair, torn between duty and conscience, knowing the choice would one day crush her. That afternoon, the six walked slowly around the artificial lake on the center's grounds. Words were scarce. They seemed to know instinctively that after today, nothing would ever be the same. Fatima settled on the grass, sketching ancient Egyptian symbols. My ancestors believed the gods lived among the stars. Perhaps, when we reach Mars, we'll touch their memory. Louise smiled gently. If so, I only hope those memories teach us compassion. Michael let out a short laugh, though for once without mockery. Let's just hope Mars doesn't crush us before it starts teaching. Daniel watched them, sensing an invisible thread weaving six strangers into something fragile but real, a family. That evening, the farewell banquet was held. Nothing extravagant, just wine, speeches, cameras flashing. Officials, scientists, and reporters gathered to see them off. Glasses clinked, laughter filled the hall. But beneath it, all knew, tomorrow, these six would leave a world that might never see them again. As Daniel conversed with an old professor, the lights flickered. The massive screen above the hall flared alive, spitting static. Then, a line of strange radio code appeared, the same Akira had once decoded. Gasps swept the room. Engineers scrambled to check systems. But before the signal cut, one faint phrase burned across the display. Remember, memory. Akira froze, pulse racing. Fatima whispered, eyes wide with dread, even here, on Earth, they're still watching. No one could answer who they were. But in that moment, the farewell banquet transformed into an omen. The mission to Mars was no longer only about science, it was about a secret waiting in the dark. That morning, Nevada's desert sky blazed a flawless blue, cloudless, as though nature itself had been scrubbed clean for this moment. The Ares I stood tall on its launch pad, a silver giant gleaming in the sunlight, like a colossal blade thrust into the heavens. Tens of thousands packed the viewing zones, while billions more watched through glowing screens. The atmosphere pulsed with excitement and dread, the collective breath of humanity held tight in its chest. Inside the preparation hall, the six crew members donned their heavy white suits, the United Nations flag emblazoned on their chests. Daniel drew a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His heartbeat thudded inside the helmet, each exhale echoing loud in his ears. He thought of his mother in Florida, likely weeping before the television, praying as the seas crept closer to her home. Luis leaned close, clapping his shoulder. Don't worry. We'll come back. I believe it. Daniel nodded faintly. He wanted to believe. But deep down he knew, no one could promise such a thing. The transport vehicle rumbled slowly toward the waiting ship. The roar of the crowd surged, banners and flags rippling in a storm of color. Michael tilted his head back against the seat, smirking. Listen to that. The whole world chanting our names. Feels like God's ascending to heaven. Fatima shot him a glance. Our lambs walking into the fire. The cabin fell silent. Only the hum of the engine carried them forward. Elena sat by the window, her eyes locked on the towering silver hull. In her pocket, her communicator buzzed once. A single encrypted line glowed on the tiny screen. Do not forget your mission. Russia trusts you. Her hands clenched, sweat prickling beneath her gloves. Two voices warred within her mind. You are a soldier. You owe loyalty. But they, your crew. They trust you. She shut her eyes, fighting the storm inside. They strapped into the command module, 6 seats in a crescent, control panels blazing with light. This is it, Michael muttered, his grin sharp, hungry. The comms crackled to life. Crew of Ares I, prepare for launch. Countdown initiated. Outside, billions of voices joined the chorus. 10, 9, 8. Daniel turned to the tiny window. Earth sprawled below, mountains, deserts, the boundless blue of the sea. He whispered, barely audible. Forgive us, if we must leave. 3, 2, 1. The world erupted. The ground shook as the engines ignited, nuclear ion thrusters thundering, blue fire blasting the Nevada sands into towering plumes. The Ares I shuddered, then rose, slowly at first, then with surging force. Cheers and sobs echoed across the desert as humanity's spearpoint pierced the sky. Inside, the crew were crushed into their seats, chests heaving under the force. Sweat rolled, breaths came ragged. Elena bit her lip until blood stained her teeth, torn between duty and betrayal. The ship tore through the clouds, breaking into the black expanse. Earth dwindled below, shrinking into a fragile marble of blue and white. No one spoke. In that silence, the weight of realization pressed upon them all. They had left behind humanity's only home. Daniel tapped a note into his digital log, hands still trembling. Day 1 Ares I departs Earth. We carry hope with us, but shadows, too. Space. An endless black ocean, scattered with distant pinpricks of light. The Ares I cut through the void, its silver hull gleaming with sunlight, a spearhead streaking toward destiny. In the command deck, 6 human beings gazed out at Earth from afar for the first time. Through the small viewport, their home had already shrunk to a fragile sphere, glowing blue and white against the abyss. Fatima pressed her hand to the glass, tears welling. So beautiful, and so unbearably alone. Luis set a hand on her shoulder, his own eyes red-rimmed. Even Michael, so often defiant, sat in silence, gaze locked on the fading planet. Daniel typed into his digital log. Day 2 We've left our blue home behind. From here, Earth is small, fragile, breakable. And I understand, this journey isn't only about Mars. It's about saving the Earth we left behind. For 3 days the voyage was calm. Akira calibrated the AI navigation systems. Elena checked engine modules. Luis monitored the crew's health. Fatima filled pages with star maps, charting their course among constellations. Michael, restless, muttered, 7 months of this, I'll go insane. Elena shot him a sharp look. Without discipline, you really will. The cabin atmosphere was taut yet alive. They all felt it, the point of no return had been crossed. On the 4th day, as they ate freeze-dried rations, alarms screamed. Red lights flared, screens filled with chaotic data streams. Akira's face drained of color. Solar storm. An X-class flare heading straight at us. Daniel rushed to the console. Time until impact. 20 minutes. A solar storm, the deadliest hazard in deep space. Without radiation shields, the storm's charged particles could cook them alive in their suits. Elena scanned diagnostics, voice sharp. The auxiliary shield isn't deploying. I'll have to fix it from outside. Daniel froze. That's suicide. If I don't, we all die. For a heartbeat no one spoke. Then Daniel snapped his helmet into place. I'm going with you. Minutes later, suited and tethered, they cycled through the airlock. The hatch opened, and the void yawned before them. Elena pushed forward, her figure small against infinity. Daniel followed, chest pounding, every breath echoing loud. Together they crawled along the hull, toward the frozen mechanism. The first wave struck. The ship shuddered violently, hull sizzling with blue-violet sparks as high-energy particles slammed into its skin. Their comms filled with static. Elena, watch it, Daniel shouted, his voice shredded by interference. A blast rocked them. Elena spun, nearly flung into darkness. Only her tether saved her. She flailed, barely catching the rail. Daniel lunged, grabbing her wrist. His heart thundered as he hauled her back against the hull. Together they fought the jammed valve, hands trembling, bodies shaking with every jolt of the ship. At last, with a groan of metal, the shield snapped open, sliding across the vessel like a great silver wing. Inside, the alarms dulled. Radiation levels dropped. The Ares I endured. They stumbled back through the airlock, collapsing onto the floor, too exhausted to speak. Luis and Fatima rushed to strip off their helmets. Michael stood apart, watching, something unspoken flickering in his eyes. Daniel lay gasping, turning his head toward Elena. His lips curved in a weak grin. You nearly killed me out there. Elena only nodded, silent. But in her eyes, something shifted, conflict, respect, perhaps even trust. Outside the window, Earth was no more than a pale blue bead. Ahead, Mars swelled larger with every passing second, red, mysterious, waiting. In the living quarters of the Ares I, the steady hum of the water recycler was like the heartbeat of the ship. That morning, the heartbeat stopped. Elena noticed first. She bent over the control panel, brow furrowing. The recycling system isn't responding. Our reserves are draining fast. Akira pulled up a diagnostic screen, lines of red error codes flooding down. The primary filter core is shot. Remote repair won't work. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low. Meaning. Elena turned, blunt, meaning in 10 days, we'll be dry. Silence swallowed the cabin. In space, water was more than hydration, it cooled the engines, fed the plants, sustained oxygen. Without it, there was no survival. Michael slammed a fist into his chair. Turn back. We haven't gone too far, we can still make it home before we die of thirst. Elena cut him off. No, return takes 3 months. We'll be dead in 2 weeks. Luis, quiet until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm, steady. There is one way. The medical module. It has its own recycler for patient fluids. If we strip it, we could patch it into the main system. Daniel's eyes lit with a spark of hope. But Akira shook his head sharply. No, without that module, we lose our ability to treat serious complications. If someone is injured or infected, we'll have nothing. Fatima clutched her notebook, whispering. So the choice is death by thirst now, or risking death by illness later. Luis stepped closer, laying a hand on Daniel's shoulder. I'm the doctor. I know better than anyone the value of that module. But I also know, without water, there won't be anyone left to heal. Daniel searched his eyes. You're sure? Luis gave his familiar, gentle smile. Medicine exists to save lives. If a machine built for medicine can become a fountain, then let it do so. Michael snapped, voice raw with rage. This is madness. What happens if someone gets sick? Luis's eyes were steady, calm. Then I'll do what I've always done, fight with my own hands. I treated war victims without supplies, without machines. I can do it again." The words stilled the cabin into silence. Elena and Daniel worked beside Luis, dismantling the medical unit with precise, tense motions. The clink of tools echoed like whispers in a tomb. Akira monitored data, fingers racing. Fatima murmured prayers under her breath. After grueling hours, a low hum filled the air. The system sputtered, then clear water trickled through the tubes once more. The crew nearly wept, rushing to catch each drop. Luis slumped into a chair, drenched in sweat, but smiling faintly. "At least, we won't die of thirst." The relief barely lasted. Michael surged forward, finger stabbing toward Daniel. "He decided for all of us. Sacrificing the med module is slow suicide. I told you, we should have turned back." Daniel rose to his feet, voice steady but iron hard. "Turning back is certain death. Going forward still leaves hope." Michael's jaw clenched, fury blazing. For a heartbeat Daniel thought he would swing. Then Elena's cold voice cut between them. "Enough. If we fall apart now, we don't need space to kill us. We'll do it ourselves." The air felt electric, one spark from igniting. Daniel opened his log, fingers tight on the console. Day 7 we saved our water, but lost a piece of ourselves. The Ares I survives, yet the crew's heart begins to fracture. The Ares I drifted in silence through the void, 6 souls trapped inside a giant box adrift on an endless black sea. After the water crisis, tension hung like smoke. Though the recycler flowed again, trust did not. Michael barely spoke to Daniel, except to grumble. "We're not pawns to be thrown away. Keep going like this, and we'll be dead long before Mars." Daniel tried, again and again, to soothe him. "Michael, I understand your fear. But turning back is impossible. There's only one path, forward." Michael's eyes burned like fire. Forward. To die of thirst. To freeze. Or to chase ghosts from some cursed signal. No one answered. The silence was suffocating, heavy enough to crack. On day 15, the scheduled check-in came. The console lit, but only with static. Voices flickered, broken, then died. Akira hammered at his keyboard. "Not good. The main antenna's misaligned. If we don't fix it, we lose Earth entirely." Elena scanned the diagnostics, breath sharp. "We'll have to go outside. The array's jammed. It needs manual adjustment." Daniel froze. "Another EVA. After the solar storm nearly." Elena cut him off, firm as steel. "Without contact, we're blind. Blind means worse than death." Silence pressed down again. Then Daniel nodded. "Fine. I'm coming with you." Once more the white EVA suits clamped shut. The airlock hissed. The hatch yawned open to the infinite. Elena pushed off first, gripping the rails, her figure stark against eternity. Daniel followed, tether swaying in the emptiness. His heart pounded with every step across the hull. The massive antenna loomed ahead, half-locked, frozen in place. Elena wedged herself into the narrow gap, muscles straining as she twisted the jammed release. Metal screamed against her gloves. "Almost, got it," her breath rasped in his headset. Then the ship jolted, rattled by some unseen tremor. Daniel lunged, seizing her as she was nearly flung into darkness. For a heartbeat, they hung suspended in the void, tether lines taut, death yawning below. Elena gritted her teeth, poured everything into one final heave. The latch gave. The antenna snapped outward, swinging into position. Inside the command deck, lights surged bright. Screens flickered, then steadied. A voice bled through the static, thin, but real. "Ares I, do you copy? Confirm crew status." The cabin erupted. Fatima clung to Luis, tears spilling. Akira slumped into his chair, gasping relief. Daniel and Elena drifted back through the airlock, sweat soaking beneath their suits. Daniel peeled off his helmet, a weary smile tugging at his lips. We're not alone, not yet. Elena sank into her seat, eyes shining with something new. The command from Moscow seemed to fade, replaced by a fragile spark, trust. But Michael's voice cut sharp, cold. Arms crossed, he hissed. Today we got lucky. But mark my words, these reckless gambles will kill us all. Daniel didn't answer. He only stared at the screen, where Earth was now nothing more than a faint blue spark swallowed by night. He logged the day. Day 15 we kept our signal, but not our trust. The farther we drift from Earth, the deeper into darkness we go, not only the void's, but our own. The command deck of the Ares I glowed under rows of cold LED lights. Panels blinked steadily, monitors displayed nominal status. But inside the hearts of the 6 crew members, nothing was stable. After the water scare, after the near loss of their antenna, their nerves were stretched thin as wires. No more idle chatter over meals, no more half-hearted jokes to chase away the gloom. In the suffocating dark of space, only silence and suspicion remained. Michael was the one who shattered it. He pushed to his feet, eyes blazing. We have to turn back. Now. Head snapped toward him. Daniel's brows drew together. Luis set aside his medical log. Akira's fingers froze over his keyboard. Elena didn't move, her dark eyes fixed on Michael, waiting. Michael drew a long breath, then spat each word like a bullet. We nearly died of thirst. We nearly lost Earth. Who knows what's next? I didn't come up here to commit suicide. I'm a pilot, I know when a mission is doomed. And this, he slammed a fist against the hull, the metal ringing, this is a flying coffin. Fatima trembled. But turning back doesn't guarantee survival. The return takes 3 months. Our water won't last that long. Michael barked a bitter laugh. At least that's a chance. And going forward, you think Mars is paradise. All you'll find there is dust and death. Akira pushed his glasses higher, voice calm but unwavering. I disagree. We've come too far. And I believe in the signal. It isn't random. It wants us to come. Fatima nodded fiercely. Yes. It's an invitation. A memory. If we turn back now, that truth is lost forever. Elena stayed silent, her heart divided. Moscow's command echoed in her head. Any data must reach Russia first. Yet when she glanced at Daniel, the man who'd risked his life outside the ship with her, something tightened in her chest. Luis spoke at last, voice low, steady. I don't want us to die. But I also don't want us to run. If I gave up the med module to keep us alive, then we can't make that sacrifice meaningless. Michael narrowed his eyes. So you're siding with Ross. The room froze as Michael stalked toward Daniel. You're the one pushing this madness. Who gave you the right to gamble with our lives? Daniel rose slowly, meeting his glare. His tone was steady steel. No, I don't have the right. But I have the responsibility. Turning back is certain death. Going forward still leaves us hope. I choose hope. Michael's fists clenched, muscles taut, ready to strike. Elena stepped between them, her voice sharp as a blade. Enough. One punch here could doom this mission. If you want to take Ross down, Michael, you'll have to get through me first. The cabin held its breath. Only the hum of air filters and pounding hearts filled the silence. At last, Michael snarled, spun away, and stormed out, slamming the bulkhead with his fist as he vanished into his quarters. The others exhaled as if surfacing from deep water. Luis rubbed his brow. We can't keep this up. If we do, it won't be Mars that kills us, it'll be ourselves. Fatima clutched Akira's hand, her voice shaking. But the signal, it's still calling. Akira murmured, eyes haunted. It repeats on a cycle. I'm certain, it's a language. Daniel typed into his digital log. Day 19. We've survived storms, but the fracture within us is worse than any cosmic threat. Mars is calling, but do we have the strength to answer? Then, the comm system flared. Not Earth. Not static. A voice, low, rough, and alien, filled the cabin, resonant as if from the bones of the ship itself. Strangers, remember, memory. The sound lingered for seconds, then dissolved into silence. Akira's eyes went wide. Fatima covered her face, sobbing. Luis gaped. Elena sat frozen. Daniel felt a chill lance down his spine. Michael burst from his quarters, eyes blazing. You see, that's what's going to kill us. No one answered. They only stared at each other, realizing the truth. From this moment on, their journey was no longer exploration, it was survival against whatever haunted Mars. After the phantom voice echoed through the cabin, no one slept. They sat in the dim glow of the consoles, hearts heavy, silence thick. Daniel wrote more lines in his journal, but even he felt words slipping. Ink couldn't hold together what was already breaking apart. Michael prowled the deck like a caged beast, muttering under his breath. Elena rested her head on her arms, golden hair veiling her eyes. Fatima prayed in whispers. Akira stared at the columns of signal data, his bloodshot eyes refusing to blink. Only Luis remained composed. At last he stood. We can't keep letting fear gnaw at us like this. If we do, we'll tear each other apart before Mars even has the chance. I suggest something simple. We share. Each of us names our greatest fear. No judgment. No arguing. Just listening. The crew hesitated. Then, one by one, they agreed. Fatima spoke first, voice trembling. I fear we won't arrive as seekers, but as thieves. I believe the signal is a memory, a message from a civilization already dead. If we don't listen, we'll repeat their tragedy. Michael scoffed, but Luis raised a hand, silencing him. Akira spoke next, dark rings shadowing his eyes. I fear my dreams. They feel too real. Cities in red ruin, voices screaming. And when the signal came, I realized they're not just mine. I fear Mars is planting its memories inside us. Elena stayed silent for a long time. Luis almost moved on when she finally whispered. I fear betrayal. I am bound by orders from home. But when I look at you, I don't want to. I don't even know who I am anymore. Daniel's gaze flickered toward her, something bright in his eyes, but he said nothing. At last, Michael. He let out a bitter laugh. Fear. Of course I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'll die like an idiot, following your little fantasies. Faith. Memories. Will they quench my throat when the water runs out? Will they keep this tin can flying when the engines burn out? He swept his glare across them. Only real decisions save lives. And reality says, turn back, before this ghost ship swallows us whole. No one answered. The silence returned heavier than before. The circle meant for healing only deepened the divide. Then the AI console beeped. A shrill tone filled the cabin. The main screen flared, strings of alien symbols scrolling. Akira lunged forward, breath caught. It's repeating. This signal, it isn't Earth's. I've checked every frequency. It doesn't match. Fatima clutched her chest, whispering. Then, Mars truly is calling us. Michael roared. No, it's bait. Someone, or something, is luring us to die. Daniel stepped closer to the console, staring into the meaningless characters. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. If it's a trap, why does it feel like a warning? Elena's fists clenched, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. For a fleeting moment, she wasn't a Russian officer, wasn't bound by orders. She was just a human, standing at the threshold of something vast and terrifying. The signal boomed again, clearer this time, rolling through the ship like thunder. Heirs, remember, memory. Everyone froze. No more pretending it was chance or hallucination. Michael slammed his fist on the table, eyes wild. You see, it's already inside our heads. And you want to let a ghost voice steer us. But this time, no one answered him. Not even Elena. Luis murmured under his breath, as if to himself. Perhaps, faith is just another form of reality. Daniel logged the day, fingers trembling. Day 21. Faith cracked tonight, but also opened a door. We can no longer deny it. Mars is watching. The only question is, why? The air inside Aries I felt heavier than steel. After the failed attempt at sharing, everyone withdrew into their own silence. But at the central console, Akira never moved his eyes from the lines of characters scrolling across the screen. His fingers flew across the keyboard, green light painting his gaunt face. Numbers and symbols stacked in patterns, repeating, aligning. Not noise, he whispered, voice trembling. It has structure. Like grammar. Daniel stepped closer. You're certain? Certain. Akira's head bobbed. I've compared it to hundreds of cosmic interference signatures. None match this. The signal has a cycle. Start points. End points. Even separators. This is language. Fatima rushed forward, eyes wide with a child's awe. I knew it. This isn't a glitch. This is memory. They want us to know them. A dead civilization whispering across time. Michael let out a sharp laugh. Fairy tales. They're dead. And the dead don't send messages. Fatima shook her head, voice breaking. Perhaps they died. But memory didn't. And that memory, it's trying to live again, through us. Silence swallowed the cabin. Only Akira's frantic keystrokes and their shallow breathing remained. Daniel opened his digital log. His hands hovered over the keys before finally writing. Day 23. The signal has the bones of language. If this is intelligence, the question is not whether they speak to us, but whether we deserve to answer. Did we come to Mars with knowledge, or conquest? Will we carry hope, or disaster? He paused, glancing around at his crew. Elena withdrawn. Michael seething. Luis grave. Fatima shining with zeal. Akira consumed. Daniel realized the answer might not lie on Mars at all, but in their own fractured hearts. Suddenly Akira cried out. Listen. It's repeating, louder. The ship's systems are amplifying it. Warning lights blinked. The intercom screeched. Then a voice, no static, no distance, rolled into the cabin, low and resonant, vibrating straight into their bones. Heirs, remember, memory. The sound shook the small space. Every face froze. Fatima sobbed. Do you see now? Not hallucination. They're speaking to us. Luis staggered back, pale. My God, I heard it. Inside my head. Elena's hands locked together, chest pounding. She wanted to believe it was a message. But the engineer inside her hissed, neurological manipulation. Michael shouted, trying to drown his fear. No, it's an attack. Don't you see? It's trying to control us. Daniel raised his hand for silence. He drew in one deep breath and looked at each of them. Whatever it is, we can't deny it anymore. This isn't chance. It's communication. The cabin hushed to stillness. 6 human beings, 6 pounding hearts, staring at the truth. Mars was no longer a barren world. It was speaking. Daniel pressed save, typing his final line of the day. The echo from Mars has spoken. There is no turning back. The habitation deck of Ares I lay drowned in cold blue light. Since the strange voice had thundered through their cabin, everyone had gone back to their duties in silence, but no one was truly working. They carried the same question in their chests, who had spoken to them? Akira changed the most. His eyes sank into dark hollows, hands trembling over the console. Daniel noticed he no longer slept. Every night, Akira kept vigil before the glowing screen, dissecting the signal. On the third day, Akira collapsed at his station. Daniel and Luis rushed to him. When they shook him awake, he bolted upright, eyes wide, sweat pouring, words spilling in a broken whisper. The city, crimson, towers falling, seas of fire, they were screaming, all of them, dead. The room froze in silence. Luis eased Akira to the med cot, checking his pulse and brain scans. His face darkened. His visual cortex is overstimulated. It's as if an external signal is forcing hallucinations. My guess, this transmission is electromagnetic, directly affecting his neurons. Fatima clutched her journal to her chest, eyes blazing. Then what he saw could be Mars's memory. A way of sending knowledge through dreams. Michael barked a bitter laugh. Memory. Don't romanticize it. This isn't history, it's an attack. It's turning his brain into a weapon against us. Elena crossed her arms, silent. Her eyes flickered, uneasy, uncertain. Akira grabbed Daniel's wrist, desperate. No, you don't understand. I saw them. I heard them. They're not trying to harm us. They're warning us. Mars, it had a civilization once. And they burned themselves alive. Fatima's eyes brimmed with tears. She held his hand tightly. I believe you. It's the truth. Michael snarled. Truth. It's madness. We delete every byte of this data before it drives us all insane. He lunged toward the console, hand raised to purge the files. Elena stepped in his way. She said nothing, only locked eyes with him, cold and immovable. Move, Michael roared. Elena didn't budge. Daniel stepped forward, voice steel. We destroy nothing. This signal might be the greatest discovery in human history. The crew split clean in two. The Seekers, Akira, Fatima, Daniel, driven by faith that the signal was language, memory, a key to Mars. The fearful, Michael, convinced it was a threat, Elena wavering, torn between duty and trust, Luis exhausted, trying to hold the pieces together. Luis lifted both hands, weary. If we keep fracturing, Mars won't have to kill us. We'll do it ourselves. His words fell into the thick silence, unheard. Each heart was shackled by its own fear, or its own belief. That night, alarms jolted no one awake, but a voice did. Not the ship's system. Not static. A voice, deep and resonant, inside every skull. Do not repeat, our mistake. Akira shot upright, eyes shining. You heard it. They're warning us. Michael shouted back, fury and terror tangled. No, it's haunting us. Chaos tore through the cabin. Fatima dropped to her knees, praying. Elena bit her lip, eyes burning, caught between fire and ice. Daniel stood still, heart hammering, haunted by a single question. If Mars once bore intelligence, are we worthy to hear its voice? The control deck of Ares I pulsed with red strobing light. The shrill beep-beep of alarms drilled into their nerves until it felt like the hull itself would snap. Elena's fingers flew across the console, her face pale. Ion cells are dropping output, erratic fluctuations, like outside interference. Daniel frowned. Could it just be a technical fault? She shook her head, voice clipped. These drives survived dozens of stress tests. They don't just waver like this. Akira all but shoved her aside, fever in his eyes. It's not random. The signal is doing this. It's interacting with the ship itself. The main lights died, plunging them into an emergency glow. Artificial gravity stuttered. The crew staggered, weight jerking in violent waves. Fatima cried out as she slammed to the floor. Luis dragged her back up. Elena's jaw clenched as she fought the console. If the output keeps falling, life support will shut down. We'll suffocate. Michael roared over the chaos. I told you. It's killing us. Wipe the data, delete every trace. Akira spun toward him, eyes bloodshot, near delirious. No, it's not an attack. It's testing us. While the two factions tore at each other, Elena froze. Moscow's order rang in her skull. All data must be sent home. Russia first, before the UN claims it. She looked at Daniel, calm, steady, unyielding. At Akira, frail, burning with belief. At Luis, exhausted, but still fighting to keep them whole. Then Michael, angry, but at least certain of his path. Her chest tightened. Am I Russian, or am I part of this crew? The main display flared to life. No one touched the controls. Elena recoiled, breath caught in her throat. It's not me, the system just booted itself. And then the image bloomed. Mars, green. Alive. Rivers shimmered through valleys. Forests blanketed mesas in emerald canopies. The ruddy sky glowed soft and clear, dotted with crystalline cities glinting like jewels. Fatima dropped to her knees, hands trembling. This is what I believed, Mars was once paradise. Luis whispered hoarsely. This isn't telemetry. It's not science data. It's memo. Michael's face twisted. He lunged for the console. Hallucination. It's shoving visions into our heads. We'll all go insane if we let this continue. Daniel blocked him, voice raw. Stop, Michael. This could be the only proof of another civilization. You don't have the right to erase it. The cabin vibrated with tension, everyone teetering on the edge. Akira stared at the vision, tears streaking down his face. They're showing us, the gods, game. The only question is, do we learn from it, or let it devour us? Elena felt her heart split in two. The orders from her homeland thundered louder than ever, but the Eden of Mars before her eyes left her unable to look away. The emerald glow on the screen flickered, then warped. Mars's forests blurred, rivers evaporated, and in their place came a sky on fire. The crew held their breath. A column of light tore down from the heavens, cleaving a crystalline city in half. Towers collapsed, plazas split open, and rivers of flame consumed the fleeing crowds. The ship itself shuddered as the vision roared through its hull. Then more beams followed, lancing the ground until paradise turned into a sea of fire. Fatima clutched her chest, her voice breaking. My God, they destroyed themselves. This isn't a greeting, it's a warning. They're telling us, don't repeat their mistake. Michael stepped forward, eyes fever bright. No, don't you see? This is proof. Mars once held weapons that could erase a city in seconds. If they built them, so can we. Daniel spun on him, fury trembling in his voice. Are you insane? You don't see the carnage. What I see is power. Michael shouted. Power to end Earth's wars once and for all. Whoever controls this, rules. Elena froze. Moscow's command pounded in her head. All discoveries must go to Russia first. Michael's logic wasn't far from it. But when her gaze fell on Daniel, shaking with rage yet burning with conviction, her chest tightened. Fatima broke down, sobbing. No, they're all dead, wiped out. That's the price of greed, of weapons. Do you want to drag humanity into the same abyss? Akira's eyes flared red, his voice shaking. I heard their screams in my dreams. I saw their towers fall. Michael, if you call this opportunity, you are the next executioner. Michael lunged, seizing Akira's collar, hauling him close. You're brainwashed. The signal's rotting your mind, you'll drag us all into the grave. Akira fought back, face twisted in anguish. No, you're the one blinded by darkness. Luis and Daniel tore them apart, but the cabin felt like a powder keg, sparks already falling. Daniel's voice exploded, shattering the chaos. Enough. He shoved himself between them, chest heaving, eyes blazing. Don't you see? We're becoming the very nightmare on that screen. If we let fear and ambition rule us, we will be no different than them, the ones who burned their own world to ash." His words cracked through the silence like thunder. The others froze, trembling in the echoes. Behind him, the screen still blazed, crimson towers collapsing, oceans of fire swallowing a civilization. Fatima fell to her knees, whispering a prayer through her tears. "Please, don't let us become them." Michael stood panting, fists trembling, rage still searing in his eyes. But at last, he turned away, face hard as iron. Daniel closed his eyes. A new fear churned inside him, deeper than any alien signal could bring, the fear that humanity could never overcome itself. The research bay glowed dim blue beneath the monitors. Akira sat rigid at the console, hand trembling around a stylus. He didn't speak, didn't blink, only drew. Daniel, Fatima, and Luis stood behind him, breath held. Line after line etched itself across the tablet, sweeping boulevards, vast squares, spiral towers reaching into the sky. Fatima pressed a hand to her mouth, heart hammering. "My God, it's a city map." Luis leaned in, frown deepening. "Not just that. These structures match Martian geological data, files NASA never released publicly. How could Akira possibly know this?" A chill ran through Daniel. He stared at Akira's wide, vacant eyes. The stylus raced across the screen as if his hand belonged to someone, or something, else. Hours later, Akira collapsed onto the desk, gasping. Luis hurried him onto a med cot, sensors flickering across his temples. The readings froze everyone. The hippocampus, the brain's memory core, was lit up like a storm. Not replaying, but receiving. Luis whispered, heavy with dread. "This isn't hallucination anymore. These are memories. Memories being implanted directly into his brain." Fatima's voice cracked, eyes wet with awe and terror. "Then Mars is using him, as a messenger." Michael barked a bitter laugh, though sweat gleamed on his forehead. "Perfect. Now we've got a Martian puppet riding with us." Daniel's fists clenched. His voice cut sharp. "Shut up, Michael." For long minutes Elena had been silent. Then she spoke, her voice low and jagged. "There's something you all need to know. I had orders from Moscow. If we discovered anything significant, I was to transmit it back, before sharing with the UN." The room went still. Daniel turned, eyes raw with hurt. "Elena." She dropped her gaze, words trembling. "I thought I could do it. But after everything, after watching you risk your lives for each other, I can't betray you. I needed you to know. I choose this crew, not orders from home." Luis laid a hand gently on her shoulder. "Thank you, for choosing us." Fatima whispered through a shaky smile, "You're one of us." Daniel stood silent, then gave a single slow nod. A flicker of trust warmed his eyes. Suddenly Akira bolted upright. His eyes rolled white, body convulsing. He seized Daniel's collar, voice bursting out ragged, "Alien. The city, burned, they are calling us." A scream tore from his throat, raw, unearthly, then he crumpled to the deck, unconscious. Fatima collapsed beside him, sobbing. Luis knelt, frantic hands checking for a pulse. Daniel froze, chest pounding like a war drum. Elena's fists clenched so hard her nails dug into her palms. A thought screamed in her mind, if these memories are real, then we were chosen from the start. The cabin drowned in silence. Only their panicked breathing filled the void. And outside, through the viewport, Mars glowed red against the abyss, like an eye watching them, unblinking. The command deck hung in silence. Only Akira's shallow breathing broke the stillness, his unconscious body stretched out on the med cot. The crew felt as though they were drifting on a knife's edge, caught between dream and nightmare, between life and death. Michael folded his arms, eyes burning with suspicion. Don't you get it? This isn't discovery. It's a trap. It's pulling us in, step by step, breath by breath. Fatima raised her tear-streaked face, but her eyes gleamed with fierce conviction. No, Michael. If they wanted to destroy us, they would have already. They could have cut our comms, drained our water, stopped our hearts in this very cabin. But they didn't. They only showed us their memories. This isn't a trap. It's an invitation. Elena stared at her, then looked away. She didn't speak, but inside the conflict roared louder than ever. Moscow's orders, or the fragile bond with her crew. Luis sat slumped, palm pressed to his brow. Doctors trust what they can measure. But here, there's nothing to measure except fear. And fear is what's killing us. Daniel rose, the red glow of a distant planet bleeding across his face through the viewport. His voice was low, steady. Maybe we don't have a choice. Turning back means certain death. Moving forward, at least, means a chance. If Mars is calling, we have to answer. Michael clenched his fists, jaw tight, but said nothing more. In his cabin, Daniel opened the digital log. His fingers lingered above the keys before he carved the words like wounds into stone. Day 25. We are no longer explorers. We are the chosen. Chosen to hear, to witness, to decide whether humanity will enter a new age, or repeat an old tragedy. He stopped, lifted his gaze. Outside the viewport, the red planet no longer looked like a speck of light. It filled the frame, a massive, waiting world. One by one, the others joined him at the window. Fatima trembled in reverence, Luis stood heavy with worry, Elena's fists clenched to keep from fracturing, Michael's eyes burned with fury and hunger. On the cot, Akira stirred, lips moving in a whisper like a dream bleeding into life. Mars is calling us. His words hung in the air like prophecy. No one spoke. Together, they stared into the void where Mars loomed, its crimson deserts, jagged mountains, canyons gouged deep, storms swirling in endless whirlwinds of dust. To Daniel, it was a new home. To Michael, a hoard of power. To Fatima, a sacred memory. To Elena, a crossroads of betrayal and loyalty. To Luis, an unsolvable riddle. To Akira, a voice that lived inside his blood. Ares I sailed on, the spear point of humanity piercing the black. Mars drew closer with every second. And they all understood. Mars was both a home, and a trap.